before we are able to establish a security baseline, not only a baseline, but an effective applicable security baseline within your organization or business, then it's very important that you understand, or we understand what it is that we are talking about, what is that we are referring to when we make mention of security baseline. So as it relates to a security baseline, then a security baseline is a set of minimum security standards and controls that an organization or business can adopt, or in terms of ensuring a foundational or those basic or minimum level of protection for its information systems and its data. Those are the key things as it relates to a baseline. And these baselines serve as a starting point for developing and implementing more comprehensive security measures tailored to the specific needs and risk of the organization. So once you have this basic uh, security component or baseline that is established, then you can always build on this at various levels within that organization. And of course, these baselines have a number of key characteristics. So let's look at some of those key characteristics of a security baseline that you also need to bear in mind. Know that you have an understanding of what you're talking about as it relates to a security baseline. And of course, we're talking about minimum standards. So every security baseline must meet a number of minimum standards. And when we're talking about minimum standards, so in this case, we're talking about minimum standards, consistency, foundation, and compliance. So minimum standards, and of course, these defines the minimum level of security that must be met to safeguard the organization assets. And this is where you will be delving into doing the necessary research to ensure that you have all of this covered. Then, as it relates to consistency, then this ensures uniform application of security controls across the entire organization. Foundation, and this provides a basis upon which additional, more specific security measures can be built. Then, of course, you have compliance, and this helps in meeting regulatory requirements and industry best practices. So these are the key characteristics that actually help to define what your baseline is: minimum standards, consistency, foundation, and compliance. And of course, our baselines, there are a number of components that actually form our baseline. So let us look at the components of a security baseline. And there are a number of components that actually characterize our baseline in terms of our policies and procedures, our technical controls, our administrative controls, and physical controls. These are the various components that help to establish the baseline within our organization. And policies and procedures, these are documented guidelines and practices that outline security expectations and responsibilities in the organization. Your technical controls, so as it relates to technical controls and implementation, we're talking about the implementation of your hardware and software solutions such as firewalls, antivirus software, EDRs, encryption, and the list goes on. Administrative controls, when we talk about administrative controls, then we're talking about management actions and policies, including access control policies, your training programs, and also incident response plans. Then you move on to your physical controls. And these are actually measures to protect the physical infrastructure, such as locked server rooms and surveillance systems within the organizations. So far we have looked at what we mean by security baseline, the key characteristics, the components, and now, of course, we need to have an idea of examples of those common security baselines that many organizations will implement to create that level of security for the organization. So there are a number of common security baseline that we're going to be looking at. And I now look see these as those core elements that need to be taken into consideration when establishing your security baseline. So we have our network security baseline. So you have your network security, access control baselines, your endpoint security baselines. We are talking about data protection baselines, your patch management, your security awareness, your identity and access management, your incident response and management baselines, and also monitoring and logging baselines. So when you take all of these into considerations, you're able to create a very strong uh, base on which to build all your security mechanisms to protect your organization. So these are things that you want to be looking at in terms of establishing that level of security for your business within the organization. Always starting from simple to advanced as you progress to gaining that level of security maturity that the organization demands, depending on the nature of the organization, the requirements, the industry, the level of type of data that is being secured, the systems, all of these factors then determines how advanced and integrated all of these elements become. So as it relates to your network security baselines, then we're talking about things such as your firewalls to protect the network perimeter, your intrusion detection systems, um, network segmentation and secure configurations. Then when you talk about your access control, of course, we're talking about your MFA, your multi-factor authentication, your role-based access control. You're talking about least privilege in the organization, endpoint security, um, and of course, as it relates to endpoint security, your antivirus, anti-malware, your EDR solutions, your regular software update and patches. For data protection, then you have your data encryption in transit and at rest, regular data backup and secure storage, and also data loss prevention tools. Then when you think about your patch management baseline, then this is where you regularly schedule updates for all software and systems in your organization, doing your vulnerability scanning on remediation, and also centralized patch management, the application of centralized patch management tools. Then your security and awareness training baselines. This is also very important. So in this case, then you are regularly training, having those regular training sessions for your employees on cybersecurity best practices, reinforcing those procedures and standards within the organization, phishing simulations and awareness campaigns, doing those policies on acceptable use and incident reporting, identity and access management. And as it relates to your IAM, then we're talking about centralized user authentication and authorization, your SSO, which has to do with your single sign-on and also multi-factor authentication, which is your MFA, and regular audits and access rights. Then your incident response management baseline, and this is where you document incident response plans, your incident response team and define roles, your regular incident response drills and simulations. Moving into monitoring and logging, which is very important. You will definitely want to know what's happening in your organization. So this is where you have continuous monitoring of systems and networks, centralized logging and log management solutions. You have real-time alerts for suspicious activities within the organization. So all of these are examples of those common, or I would say those core baselines, um, categories that you really want to be looking at to establish that fundamental or that basic security maturity level within your organization. And of course, you might be thinking, so with all of these, then what you're doing is pretty much establishing a solid foundation for information security. Bearing in mind that these serve a number of important roles, and we're talking about for the sake of risk mitigation, which helps in identifying and addressing common security risk. for the purpose of compliance, ensuring that there are adherence to regulatory and industry standards, efficiency, ensuring that uh, your systems are providing a structured approach to security and making it easier to manage and scale. And also for consistency, ensuring that all parts of the organization maintain a minimum level of security. So these are very important to be aware of. So a security baseline or security baselines in this case are essential for establishing what I would describe as a robust, dynamic, um, flexible cybersecurity posture for that organization, one that is very agile in light of the various cybersecurity threats. So when you actually implement these, then these can actually help to provide a starting point for just about any organization or business in terms of protecting your assets, whatever those assets are. And these help to serve as a foundation for more advanced security measures, which I've made mention to earlier. So implementing and maintaining these baselines helping absolutely in terms of helping mitigating risk, ensuring compliance, and also promoting a culture of security within your organization.